Hey guys, the first day of Unit 3, starting off a little bit late. We didn't have a presenter for this week, so I'm hoping that I can kind of get the ball rolling in terms of discussion, go over a few basic things for this subject, which is origins of computer art. So our reading was by Zabet Patterson. And of course, when you're discussing the origins of computer art, the first thing that you have to discuss is how that art is created, which was through a screen. Um, this screen enabled users to interact with computers in an entirely new way and to create things that hadn't been possible up to that point. A lot of the things that were created were for the sake of research, but some art came out of it too, and a lot of further developments down the line, just created this entirely new history for technology and art. So the screen that was introduced and discussed at length for the reading was the Charactron, and that was developed by a company called Stromberg Carlson. And it was a CR screen, which was revolutionary for the time. The evolution of this screen was interestingly brought about through necessities of war. And it was used a lot, the screen was used a lot for, I think it was directing air traffic for the military. So they were really, these computers that the screens enabled users to interact with. The computers were really expensive to use. I think it was upwards to like $3.5 million with, not including the cost of $500 per minute of output that was necessary to keep these computers up and running. So very expensive technology. Just gonna look at my notes here to gather my thoughts. Let's see. The Cold War prompted the Defense Department to bolster the budget for radar technology, which caused more advancements in screen technology because it was necessary during the time of the Cold War. So the users who interacted with this technology, mostly for research purposes, one user in particular was E.E. Zajac, and he is cited as making the very first computer film for what was called the SC-4020. And this short computer film simulated a satellite around the Earth. So he wasn't necessarily trying to create a film per se for the sake of art. He was mostly trying to create a demonstration. But it turned out to be this big revolutionary thing that hadn't been done before. In contrast to that, but still sort of similar when it comes to the screen and videos, F.W. Sinden set out to intentionally make an educational film with the use of the same technology that Zajac was using. So this screen, these computers were being used for all different kinds of purposes. And one of the things that our author wrote that I thought was interesting was that he called all of this a constellation of relational elements. And I should have written that down better. I'm not entirely sure what he said that in regards to specifically, but I think it was just a really neat way of talking about all of these different results that came about the use of this same piece of really expensive technology. Again, it was used in a specific way, but I'm using it in a more broad way in terms of the reading. I thought that was a really neat way to sort of sum it all up. So for the sake of art, again, a lot of these things that were brought about through the use of the screen and the computer technology wasn't necessarily for the sake of art, But in Zajac, in what Zajac created, that ended up being considered a piece of artwork. And that led to what was called the Computer Generated Pictures Exhibition, which was the first exhibition to showcase computer art in 1965 at New York. I believe that with the introduction of new things, we've kind of touched upon this before, about how we as people, as society, are a little apprehensive when it comes to things that are new and things that are unfamiliar. We tend to cherish tradition and to cherish, where we came from. So anything that can sort of mess with that balance can be a little persona non grata, I guess, for lack of better phrasing. One of the things that critics mentioned about this exhibition in New York, about the computer art, was that it seemed cold and soulless, which I think further just sort of serves to my opinion that to anything unfamiliar, particularly in this instance in the art world, it was just very, it wasn't received very well. It was odd, and it was peculiar, it was out there, and it was a little bit hard to grasp because all of this technology was just so new. One of the artists there, I wasn't sure if this was an artist or if he was one of the curators, Noel, he wanted to, in his work and what he was able to come up with, he wanted to restrict the chaotic effects of purely random number distribution with a sort of pseudo-randomness that was calculated to generate a pleasing appearance. That was one of the ways that one of the artworks at this exhibition was summed up. And that was hard for people to wrap their head around because a lot of the stuff that they were looking at just seemed a little bit random. They found themselves questioning the point of it, if this had any sort of meaning beyond the face value of just being created with a computer. So it was just interesting that, cold and soulless was used to sum up this exhibition, and I can see how some people might think that, in regards to, let's say, music, some music is created entirely through the use of a computer, throughout, interacting with a screen. We have touch screens now, so you can, say, interact with an iPad and create music or a song or a piece of artwork just by, theoretically using your finger and a touch screen that you interact with, while still being created by a human. The result might seem a little cold in that it's purely, it isn't organic, it's electronic. But I believe that, as an artist, as somebody who creates something, you put the soul into what it is that you're creating. If there's no soul in something that is computer generated or something that seems cold, it's because the human didn't put the soul there. They didn't put enough care there to make it seem personable. That's my opinion. It might be a little off kilter, but that's my opinion about computer generated art, is that if it's soulless, it's because the person who created the artwork didn't put the soul there. It's not necessarily the fault of the computer. One other thing that I kind of wanted to touch upon, which I thought was interesting, was they talked about stereoscopic 3D technology through screens. And a question was brought up in the reading about whether we perceive 3D through the eye or through the mind. And in considering that, it would help us to better understand 3D technology and how to produce more effective 3D equipment. This was definitely probably one of the better examples of a new sort of technology used for computer art 3D, how to create believable 3D and how to have a user experience that 3D. And I think that it's interesting to me that we're still sort of trying to figure that out. We have glasses that we use to experience 3D when we watch a film through whatever screen we're watching the film on, Or there's this example that I wanted to use, a modern day example. I'm going to talk about video games again. It's a video game console called the Nintendo 3DS. I actually have one here. And this is a screen technology that creates the illusion of 3D through the use of numerous vertical lines that run throughout the screen. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. This is the device itself. We're talking about the top screen here. And what happens is that there are numerous vertical lines that run through the screen, and these vertical lines split the image that the user is seeing, so that your left eye and your right eye are seeing two different images. You have to be within a certain distance from the screen to experience this, otherwise the images won't meet your eyes correctly. And since your eyes see two different images, your brain perceives that as depth, and it creates the illusion of 3D. So it's interesting in that you still have to focus on certain things in the image. Like, say there is a figure in the foreground. If you focus on that figure as you would in real life, the figure itself will be clear and the background will be blurry, as opposed to, if you focus on the background will be clear and the foreground will be blurry. So it's able to mimic the way your eyes perceives 3D in depth and replicate it with screen technology. So it's interesting how the technology has developed and what it has become, and 3D can be replicated in numerous ways, and this is just one example, a convenient example for the mass consumer market. I just thought that that was a neat example, and it made me, that quote that I just read about 3D being perceived in the eye or the mind, I think that it's created through the eye, because once you understand how the eye receives images and translates images to your brain, it all happens there. It all happens in the eye. So how do you manipulate the eye, from a technology standpoint, how do you manipulate the eye to see something in 3D? You know what, interestingly enough, the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe it's the mind, because, it's the mind that's doing all the deciphering. Interesting. I'm kind of changing my own mind as I talk myself through my former opinion out loud. But I think that this is kind of an interesting question that can push our discussion. Do you guys believe that 3D is perceived in the eye or the mind? And when that is related to computer art, how would a screen, what are other examples of 3D screens out there? Are there artists who use computer art in depth to create interesting pieces of art? What are modern examples of computer art that sort of push the boundaries of the senses? What are new innovative screen technologies that have been introduced throughout the years? I know that, for example, Samsung is a company that's sort of a contemporary leader in screen technology. We have curved displays that I believe they originated with Samsung. We have OLED panels, which are very successful at creating very deep and rich blacks and very bold, vivid colors. We have LCD technology, which is a more durable type of screen. So you have all these different types of screens or technologies that are able to present an experience to their user. So all these different technologies, I believe, lend themselves to computer art. And I'm interested in seeing what you guys have to say about maybe whether it be screen technology or computer art itself. I'm interested in seeing where we can take this discussion. I hope I'm starting the conversation in a successful way. Thank you guys for, well, I guess nobody's contributed so far, but thank you for watching my video, and I look forward to your future contributions. Thanks, guys.